All right. And with that.
I can't tell from my vantage, has Maria joined us yet? I know she's planning to attend in person, and I'm sorry, I'm not feeling well. She is?
Not sharing. She is not present, no.
I know she is anticipating arriving in person, so I don't know if we want to check the elevator again or.
Well, Commissioner Cameron just made it up the elevator.
I used the pulley.
But did you push number 1 after you got off?
No, it took 5 minutes to come back down.
Well, so what you do is when you get off, you push 1 so that it goes back down for the next person.
Nice. I didn't even think of that.
Commissioner Brentano used to do that. He taught that.
Oh,
He's a lot nicer than I am.
I don't know why I'm doing that.
You can tell him I don't work.
We started
recording
recording
now. Okay, well, we'll start with this part, and anticipate that Director Enolos Presley will join us by the time we get to item D or E, whatever that is. All right, I'd like to call to order the Salem-Keizer Area Transportation Study. It is Tuesday, March 25th, 2024. And for the record, ask Ms. Busenheft to please call the roll for the members.
Ann Henson, ODOT. Kathy Clark. Here. Kevin Cameron.
Here.
Lyle Morhurst.
Here.
Sadie Carney.
Present.
Steve Horning.
Here.
And Trevor Phillips.
Here.
Okay, and then we'll go around the room with staff members and then with members of the public. So let's start with Brandon. Come around this way.
Brandon Williams, ODOT Region 2, Planner, Marion, Polk, and Hill Counties.
Julie Hanson, City of Salem Transportation Planning Manager.
Lee Jackson, SKATS staff.
Teresa Wivenhut, STAT staff. Kim Sapinar, SKAT staff.
Mike Jaffe, Transportation Planning Director.
Amber Mathieson, Finance Director at Herrick Hogg.
Steve Dobernich, I'm a Transportation Planner here for SKATS.
We'll go to Councilor City
Della Sini, Council President, City of Almsville.
and to Ms. Duncan.
Director Duncan, I'm an alternate from the Salem Area Transport.
And then yesterday,
Tammy Kunz, Kaiser Community Development. Greater Northeast type of neighborhood.
Shoki Ol Azum, I'm the Chief Planning and Development Officer at SEMTAD, Salem Area Mass Transit District.
thank you very much. And joining us now in perfect timing is,
Maria Hinojosa Cressy, Salem-Keizer School District.
all right. Thank you all very much. The first order of business is to approve the minutes from February 27th, 2024. Were there any additions or corrections to note? If not, a motion to approve as presented.
I'll move.
Moved by Director Enolos Presley,
I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Cameron. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, signify by saying no. Hearing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Public comment this time is provided for members of the public to address the Salem-Keizer Air Transportation Study. So, any comments from public members today?
Madam Chair, may I ask who CL is on the Zoom?
CL, can you expand on your acronym initials? On the Zoom. So what I forgot to acknowledge for the record who is on the screen from staff members. So actually, let's go around. Did you get CL?
Yes, I got it in chat.
Who?
Celia Lemhouse, resident.
Okay, welcome Celia. And then also staff members, we have Ashley Briers from Federal Highway. Hey, Ashley.
Hello.
Scott McClure. From Turner. And Janelle Shanahan, right?
Yes.
Southern County.
Yes.
And Naomi.
And Naomi, there you go. Naomi's Woodling from ODOT. Now we have everybody, I believe. Okay. Well, we're going to be going through these amendments to the SKATS 2429 tip and turn it over to Steve.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen, and this is also in the meeting packet as part of attachment D, but I have basically the information kind of summarized in a few, I think it's about 4 or 5 slides here. And the action requested is going to be to adopt resolutions 24-5 through 24-8. That's 4 different amendments, and I'll just go through them one by one and just stop me whenever there's questions or conversation about the project. Otherwise, I'll just kind of go through them all at once. So the first one is resolution 24-5. This relates to the pedestrian safety improvement crossing project that the city of Salem has programmed in the TIP and the STIP. Right now, the city is requesting to add $500,000 in local overmatch, in addition to the existing federal funds that are on the project, and to also update the crossing locations to 3 places, which include River Road at Riviera Drive Northeast, Lancaster at Weathers Northeast, and then State Street on Third Street. The construction phase for this project is in 2025, federal fiscal year 2025. And then in terms of the total cost of the project, it's going to shift from about 1.4 million to 1.9 million. That's the first one. 24. Did you have?
Sir, a picture River Road and Riviera. So that, is that near the, I wish it was a roundabout, drunk catcher?
Fred Meyer's is.
Yeah. It's a beautiful planter that gets hit on a regular basis.
No, it's a different.
Further
Oh,
south.
no.
Further south.
It's further south than that.
So I'm kind of centering in on it
Got
here. Which one's
So
Riviera? I
west
think
of-
this one's Riviera.
Fred Meyer, okay.
Yep. Yeah, just to the west of Fred Meyer there.
The park.
Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, we were just discussing, actually, Director Carney and I were discussing that site yesterday. So perfect. There you go. Thank you for that clarification, and yes, I just want to keep throwing on the record that I wish that, that little planter was around about. Going on.
Okay, so the next one is, there we go, 24-6. So this is an ADA curb ramp design project. It's an ODOT project. And the request here is to transfer $2.71 million from, essentially just between 2 different key numbers in the TIP. One is phase 2 and one is phase 1. They have the same project description. They're both part of the same overall effort of replacing curb ramps that ODOT's doing statewide. These particular ones relate to our area of West Oregon. And it's essentially just a change of funds from one programmatic bucket into the current programmatic bucket so they can continue to do the design work. And right now, the design is ongoing, and I believe tentatively construction for some of the curb ramps associated, at least with this key number, is in between 2025 and 2027. Although there may be other, there's a lot of curb ramp work going on, so there may be other key numbers and projects happening related to it.
Yes, and I wish I could speak to this a little bit better, but our ADA program is a separate entity now from regular project delivery, and so I'm kind of kept up to speed to some degree. We talked about having the ADA program kind of give us a download at the next ACT meeting, well, not the next ACT meeting, but an ACT meeting coming up. So we'll know a little bit more, but sorry, I can't speak to this. If you want me in the future to that's helpful to this board.
And I think all of our jurisdictions that are, especially all the cities are doing this because that we have to. And it's the right thing to do, but it's also required, so there you go. And we all have projects going on.
Yeah, I'll go on to the next one. So 24-7 is formula funds for enhanced senior and enhanced service for seniors and people with disabilities, the formula program. And essentially what we're doing here is SAMTD is requesting to increase the project allocation that's listed in the tip. And the reason for that is when it's initially programmed, it's put in as a projection. And then when the when the funding is actually approved and released, it can vary slightly. So the change here is to add $153,000 and $698 to the total project. So it'll go from about $317,000 to $471,000.
And then the source of these funds is the federal allocation, so they just got more than we anticipated.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So it's like a yearly allocation. It's originally programmed or projected based on the 5-year total lifespan of a federal piece of legislation for transportation, and then year by year it gets authorized by Congress, and that's when the funds can vary slightly based on that. Okay, and the last one is Resolution 24-8. This is a curb warning upgrade project that ODOT's doing. There's a few changes here. The main one is that our region is actually being, or the SKATS area is being brought into a part of this project key number. So previously it was limited to like Lincoln County, Clatsop County, the rural parts of Polk County. But essentially what ODOT's doing here is they're adding additional locations, and more locations they're adding about $820,000 in funding, and then also updated the project to just Northwest Oregon curb warning instead of listing out some of those specific counties that I mentioned before. And right now, this is funding for design, which would be in 2024, 2025, and then construction 26. The construction is not actually funded at this point.
For the estimated construction, it's not currently funded. Is that because it's outside of this window, or there have been no funds identified?
Well, it gets a little tricky. Let me try to explain it. Okay. The arts program and like our culverts program and our paving preservation program are bucketing, what we call bucketing construction funds. So when you get to 50% design, which is about what we call DAP, or design acceptance phase, then we ask the program funding manager for funds. So they get to keep their pot of money until the project gets halfway designed, basically, have a really good estimate of what it's going to cost, and then they'll allocate the money. So, especially for these curb warrant, these arts projects, the program funding manager, he knows where he wants his money, and he has it. He's keeping that in his account. If that makes sense. So it will. I'm sure we'll get funded.
Okay,
Is my point, I guess.
so there's a funding stream identified.
Yes.
It's not like, gee, I wonder where that's coming from.
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you, that helps.
Hopefully it doesn't run out.
Well, get ours done.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions on any of these projects? We are a lot of the experts in here in the room. Okay, we have resolutions 24-5, 6, 7, and 8. We can move them individually or in block.
Madam Chair, I will move resolutions 24, 6, 7, and 8 block.
We got 5 on purpose.
Yeah.
Second.
You want, let me amend that motion. Madam Chair,
Redo.
Madam Chair, I will move resolution 24, didn't I say 5?
No, you said.
24, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Okay,
Second.
Resolutions 24-5, -6, -7, and -8 have been moved in block. Is there anybody who objects to moving these in block and wants to take them individually? Hearing none, discussion on the block. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, signify by saying no. Hearing no objection, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, thank you. Great work on all of that. Okay. We are now going to go to the next part of our discussion regarding our MPO structure. And what I'd like to do is kick this off with a couple of background comments and then turn it over to Mike. Who's going to get ready to share his screen with just some framing. And you've all read the packet. Not sure why I couldn't be here. So we have been provided a tremendous amount of information about voting structures and options. And I really want to thank Mike, who has been providing us with thoroughness of our options and how MPOs are structured both here and elsewhere. It has been really clear over history that our MPO is structured and based on collaborative problem solving. And our MWAC is the same way, based on the same collaborative problem solving. In both cases, our MPO and our act are unique, and that uniqueness has benefited us for decades. I'd like to have Mel talk, please. Mike, give us a little bit of background just to make sure we're all on the same page, and I'd like to fill in some additional background before we go to the first item for discussion. Mike.
Okay, I only have a few slides and my memo is fairly short because I know we have a lot of time, most of the time discussing things. So the main purpose today is consideration of the chair's suggested motion as revised, and you'll see the revision in a later slide, for drafting an amendment to the SKATS cooperative agreement. My PowerPoint will stay. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Onslow. Last February, there were some questions about Onslow and funding opportunities, and address those. We're talking about amending the bylaws. That's really quick. The timeline when we did the cooperative agreement in 2003. Then we'll move on to the chair's suggested motion with some revisions, which you'll see, and then any motions to deliberation and voting, that process. So I did confirm that the city of Oswald is still eligible for the small city allotment funds from ODOT, which they recently got one last year or this year. So they'll still be eligible when added to the SKATS planning area. They'll become ineligible when their population is over 5,000, but that's true for any small city. And in discussion with ODOT, they agree with us at SKATS that Oswald can submit project proposals for SKATS discretionary funds in the TIP after they've been added to the SKATS planning area. And that should happen sometime this year. So it does, the city doesn't have to be on the SKATS policy committee to submit proposals. In addition to your packet, there's a letter from Oswald showing that they are in the urban area. There's a little map that the city administrator sent. And it just shows that Oswald and Turner and all those urban areas are in the urban area. And it included a small list of rural grants that when they were in the rural area, maybe they were eligible, but those are very hard to get competitive rural grants. And usually sometimes they're very big grants. So they're basically changing from a rural area to an urban area. Okay, next slide. So about the bylaws, I want you to bring to your attention that the SKATS bylaws have provision for how they are to be amended. And it's Article 5, and it's right here. The bylaws may be amended at any regular meeting of the SKATS Policy Committee, provided that written notice of and the proposed amendment is mailed to each member of the committee not less than 5 days prior to such meeting.
meaning we can't just come here and make a change to the bylaws. It has to be shared out at least 5 days. This slide is about the last time we amended the cooperative agreement in 2002, 2003. So the history was that the urban area expanded. Turner was now part of the Salem urban area. They were asked to participate. The TAC got involved discussing the draft amendment to the cooperative agreement and related issues. Then the PC discussed that draft amendment. We did a motion to release the draft amendment for approval, and that was passed. There was some discussion a few months after that about discussion about whether the school district they're a member of the PC, are they a signatory? It was decided that, let me go back a step, on the original cooperative agreement, the school district was not a signatory. They were a member of the policy committee, but not a signatory. And in the history of that, there's a description and there's a memo about this. At that time, the policy committee made the decision that they would not become a signatory. They still is a member. And the reasoning behind that is that the general purpose local governments wanted to retain that control, that they are they're the parties to this cooperative agreement. So they still wanted the school board to be a member of the policy committee. So they were not added as a signatory. Then,
as a voting member of the policy committee.
Right.
Not a top, because that was also an option, and voting was included.
So it took a number of months for signatures to be obtained. And then after all the signatures were obtained, the SKATS Policy Committee amended the bylaws to add Turner as a voting member. So we're going to go through some similar process, but I wanted to show you that it can take multiple months to get all the signatures. The Oregon Assistant Attorney General signed the last one. The Deputy Director of ODOT also signed it. So there's time. Maybe it'll go faster this time.
We have email for starters.
Right.
All right, so I will take it from here. If I may.
Did you want to make anything about the length of this discussion?
I will. Thank you very much.
No, excuse me, Chair, I do have the changes. I have the changes if you want to go through those.
I will get to those when I would like to make the motion at that time, if I may. So there is a slight change for compliance with our requirements of making motions. So it'll be a little bit different from what was in the packet, but the same basic idea. If I may, I will take it from here. So in the packet, we saw a suggested motion to get this conversation started. And the idea is to get back to what we've been asked to do as an NPO. And that number one has been to bring Almsville in as a general purpose government and a voting member. Can we please see a printed version of the amended? Yeah, there's only one word change. It's going to bring those two together. That's it.
And I have my slides, Chair, if you want to. When you're ready.
Yeah, when we're ready, we'll bring that slide up.
Okay, thanks.
The exact language, which is of course subject to change because we all know how to do that. But I want to really focus this conversation on the fact that our MPO structure reflects our partnership, our collaboration, and our understanding, and we, under current federal law, can continue to do so, and I believe we all want to do that. Our technical and policy teams deal with projects from our adopted TSP, Transportation System Plan. And there have been some questions from folks about where these transportation system plans come from. All of us who are cities and counties know because those are community-wide public participation documents. We go through an extensive process to create those transportation system plans with the technical assistance, and I don't know about all you all, but I have to have a grant to do that. They're expensive to do them and to do them right. That's why they last so long. is because of the process that was so comprehensive in creating those transportation system plans. Queuing up the projects then that are eligible for federal funding and moving forward locally with the projects that are eligible for our local funds that cities like Keizer receive through our gas tax. Put all together, that plan then has to bring those projects together in a way that creates a cohesive transportation system. So as a side note, OMPOC was created with the same objective, just like our MPO is bringing together different jurisdictions. OMPOC, for those who aren't familiar with that, I was around the beginning of it, beginning of time or time immemorial, it begins to feel like after 18 years. The Oregon Municipal Planning Organization Consortium, OMPOC, was created with the idea that we needed to bring all of the MPOs together face to face. Portland, Salem-Keizer, Corvallis, Bend, Grants Pass, and Rogue Valley. 2 more have been added since then, Albany and Middle Rogue. With the idea that we were going to find out how each other operated, what we were doing, what we needed, and we found out we had a whole lot more in common than we did different, but we learned from each other's differences. And I believe that is very reflected in our MPO. So with that, I would like to go ahead and make the motion that almost what you see on the screen. Ask for a second, and then I would ask to be able to speak to that motion. Therefore, I move that the SKATS Policy Committee directs SKATS staff to prepare an amendment to the SKATS Cooperative Agreement to add the City of Almsville as a voting member of the SKATS Policy Committee. Here's the change, Sadie, and Director Carney and Councilor Phillips. And initiate the process to amend the SKATS bylaws to align with the cooperative agreement upon the final completion of the cooperative agreement. It's now on the screen. So with that, I would like entertain a second, and then I'd like to speak to the motion.
I'll second it.
Commissioner Morhorst seconds. Thank you, Commissioner. To the motion. As each city has entered the MPO, they've all been treated the same. Keizer was a brand new baby city when we entered STATS to make it SKAT. Turner was also added back in 2003, a little bit before my time. And now we're going through the process with Almsville. We heard very clearly from Mayor Seha about the uniqueness of the viewpoint Almsville will bring to our MPO family, and we should embrace that diversity. If there are issues in 2030 regarding statements, that will be up to the MPO Policy Committee at that time to discuss. And I hope and I pray that the precedent we set today and over these many cycles will guide those discussions as well. That Staten will receive the same level of participation and respect as the other cities at the table that we have built into a commitment through voting status to understand each other and work together in the process. We've talked about voting and keeping score and so forth, but I would propose that each of us in becoming a voting member of the MPO is taking on a commitment. We are saying we are so committed to this work that we are willing to be a voting member and take on the duties and responsibilities that go with it. Yes, Almsville could come on ex officio. Other jurisdictions can do the same. But when we say, I will be a voting member, we are committing to the work of this MPO to be a full, engaged, collaborative regional participant. And in my opinion, bringing Almsville on in that status only makes us as a region stronger. That is my statement. Speaking to the motion, I would invite discussion, and then I will ask for some additional conversation about the second request. Other discussion. Director Eno Host Pressing.
Through this process, I just still feel
a little unclear between the voting member and the signatory, because like I know that we've talked about how the MTP and the TIP, those are the documents that require the consensus, and then it's like the signatory system, if for some reason we don't get consensus. And I just want to know like how this impacts Turner and also.
Mr. Jaffe?
Well, Turner is obviously on the policy committee now as a voting member. This would add Bonsall as a voting member. The school district is also currently a voting member. The other members are voting members, and they're also parties to the agreement. So parties to the agreement are required to sign. Other jurisdictions, that will be up to this body to see.
Yeah, so would that, for us to decide, like, if we would want them to be signatories as well, would that be like in the bylaws or?
It's really, no, not in the bylaws. So it's an agreement, and the current agreement is in effect until all the parties to that agreement updated it. So you do have to get signatures from all parties to the agreement. Any other signatories are optional.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Cameron?
just for clarification, Mike, you can those parties. I know they're.
Yeah, let me direct you.
First now.
Yeah, if I direct you to the packet and the cooperative agreement, so everyone's kind of following along. This is attachment B in the packet, and that first paragraph describes who the parties are, which is ODOT, the Council of Governments, City of Salem, City of Keizer, Marion County, Polk County, and the Transit District are the parties.
Any further discussion at this point? So I would also ask that we think about the second ask that has been made to our cooperative agreement, and to consider that we may want to make an addition to this motion.
Yes, I would like to add something, but I'm trying to incorporate the new words, and it's hard to wordsmith on the fly.
May I suggest something for you, Councillor Phillips?
Yeah,
Thank you. I'd be happy to do so. So for context, we all are aware that Salem has asked for one more voting position. It's not proportional, and we've had a number of discussions regarding proportionality, but it recognizes that Salem is a large and diverse city that covers a great deal of the area inside SKATS, and it touches about every boundary that our MPO touches. If an additional voting position were added, and please note I'm using the word voting position, not just vote, it would change the ratio if this motion on the table is approved from 1 out of 9, 11%, to 2 out of 10, which would be 20% of the vote. While the proposal appeared to come out of nowhere for some of us, and I was one of them, and has created a lot of questions and concerns and ideas, and thanks again to Mr. Jaffe for providing a great deal of options and background for other MPOs in the state. I would like us to reflect on what Mayor Hoy said. It really is as simple as he proposed. One more voting position. And in hearing about the different MPOs in Oregon, we are an outlier in that the largest city does not have more than one representative. I think there's one other, that's the largest city, which is nowhere in the same size as even Keizer. I would like to point out that over the years, Salem has been a good partner with this body, with his Councillor Phillips' predecessors, Councillors Dan Clem and Jim Lewis, who worked tirelessly on behalf of the city in partnership with all of us. And they worked very, very hard because they were representing this large city. I would agree, and I hear Mayor Horning's comment at the last meeting, that Salem has not been harmed historically in terms of project support and selection. But I would posit that the stated purpose of a second voting position is what I said about Almsville. It is a commitment. It is a commitment on the part of Salem to be fully invested in this partnership for the MPO, for the benefit of our region. Bringing two people who are fully vested in being partners with us, and that they both would bring their full attention to the needs and the interoperability of our systems for our region. So the corollary to Mayor Horning's point, I would agree that there's not a harm in terms of dollars and cents, but I believe that there will be a benefit from two committed members from the capital city. Therefore, if I may assist Councilor Phillips about a friendly amendment to add a voting member for the city of Salem.
Yes, and I think I've got like a motion that's 99% wordsmith. So do you want me to read what I have? I put it in the chat so staff can bring it up.
That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so as the representative for the city of Salem on this body, I, member Trevor Phillips, move. The motion is to direct SKATS staff to prepare an amendment to the SKATS cooperative agreement to add the city of Almsville as a voting member and provide an additional voting seat to the city of Salem for the SKATS policy committee and initiate the process that the SKATS bylaws be comprehensively reviewed and amended in concurrence with the cooperative agreement.
So this would be a friendly, what I'm hearing is a friendly amendment to the main motion.
Yes, that's the
And
intent.
as the mover, I accept. I am looking to the second.
Guess I've got challenges.
I understand. So we can do it one of two ways.
So I'd be open for more discussion.
Second
I've got to be
discussion?
convinced
Okay.
for a second vote. You didn't second that. You
No. Okay. So then we will need to, so it can't be a friendly amendment, so it'd be a,
Counter motion.
yeah. So a motion to amend the original motion with the language as proposed. So the moved by Councilor Phillips, seconded by Director Pressy. So this motion is now on the table
Madam-
for conversation.
Madam Chair, just point of order. Don't we have to vote on the first motion that's on the table?
No, this is a proposed amendment,
Or substitute.
or substitute, whatever you want to call it. This is amending the original motion. And then if this fails, then it goes back to the original. If it passes, we're done.
Have a second, have the motion is.
We have these,
I'm gonna bring that up on the screen here.
Yep.
Get better.
we have the amended motion with Councilor Phillips inserting the additional voting member. And it was seconded by Director Pressy. Discussion.
Move the chat box up.
But I'm working on this now, so.
All right.
Cooperate.
And may I speak to my motion now that it's up?
Councilor Phillips.
Yes, so I think that Chair Clark, you did an excellent job of advocating and hearing and paraphrasing what the city of Salem was trying to communicate as clearly as possible. I mean, regardless of this outcome, we're changing, our proportionality a bit. I appreciate everybody listening and taking this intent in the good faith that it's intended. I think that having an additional representative from the city of Salem strengthens us for all the same reasons that adding Almsville strengthens us. I think that, the outcomes in terms of votes on, future big documents like the tips and The plans that we all agree on are likely to be similar, but I think that by having, one additional voice in the room from our largest population center will help us confront, our ever-changing world. I think that whoever it is that's appointed by the city of Salem, usually through the mayor, will be engaged in the process, committed to making this a strong body. And so I'm happy to answer any questions. And then I think it's just that there were the 3 dots that I put in the text message. And I think the words that connect the 3 dots are and then it goes into kind of the boilerplate stuff. The other thing that's in this that wasn't in the original motion is just that we'll be comprehensively reviewing this. We just want to codify that, we'll all be kind of looking at how this process works. I mean, I know that as a newer member who's trying to incorporate a lot of new information, I think a review process would be helpful for us, but that's not a sticking point for the city of Salem. The main issue for the city of Salem is just an additional voting member to strengthen this body. So I appreciate everybody considering that. I think it would make this process go very smoothly for the city of Salem. It would continue to demonstrate our mutually cooperative regional involvement in all things that we do.
Thank you, Councilor Phillips. And to your point about review, that is something that we will be able to address in the bylaws process.
Yep.
Chair, can you give me a minute? I need to make sure we get the wording correctly in there. I think I might have missed it.
I think it's pretty close.
Well, there's something critical word that it was.
There's a word. Okay, we will wait for the word. The word will be spoken.
Yes, comprehensive. I was trying to stitch things together on the fly.
Mayor Horning.
Just a clarification that, so are we gonna have a conversation at this amendment, or do we do another proposal and have to have conversations with that? Because right now it looks like you could just keep on going if you wanted to.
If somebody has another amendment, that can keep happening as well. That's how that works right now.
Is it best to have a conversation about this particular amendment and then have a counter?
Well, we didn't do that with the last one, so it doesn't matter. This is going down a rail.
I feel that makes me feel very sad. And
We didn't have a discussion about the previous before amendments.
we did not. But I asked
Madam
for
Chair, never
discussion.
mind, sorry.
With all due respect, Commissioner, I asked for further discussion before we went to this, and there was nothing. Nobody said anything. Mayor Horning, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Last meeting, I was pretty vocal about City of Salem and the second vote and the process itself. We have to go to the governor to add the second vote and just to structure all of this. And I left an open question last time to say, we were talking about not being harmed. And I haven't heard anything yet that said, what's the benefit just to say bigger cities have this, Salem wants it. And if you had a committee in the city of Salem to prioritize the goal of SKATS spending or making decisions on spending the funding, why go to all these steps if you can just have your own committee internally or add non-voting members? We don't have to mess with going to the governor. You get the same effect.
A point of order, sir, if I may. Did we get information about this having to go to the governor or not?
So,
I want to make sure that, we focus on.
Well, it's not going to change my point. I mean, it's not going to change the point to say, why are we going to this step? If Salem can still do the same amount of input to this committee, whether they have a voting member or not. If you had all members of the wards get together and say, here is Salem's priorities, they have their representative come to SKATS and make their presentation to say, we would like to spend the money that way.
That's a point well taken. Other comments? Director Carney?
Thank you, Chair Clark. I'm not sure I entirely was able to hear the previous comment that you noted was a good point because of the audio. I just wanted to note that, so if we could get a revision on that, that would be great. I'd love to follow along. And I'm noting a word difference between what Trevor put in the chat and what's on the slide now, and I don't think they are 100% aligned with each other. I believe the motion being proposed by the city of Salem calls for comprehensive review of the bylaws and amendment in concurrence with the cooperative agreement. So it's initiate the process to amend the bylaws and comprehensive. I don't see anything about the concurrence.
Oh, I don't remember the
Was
concept.
that in his chat? Okay, someone help me with the wording. I'm a little lost. What's not correct?
I mean, the
Comprehensively reviewed and amended in concurrence,
Bylaws.
in concurrence with the cooperative agreement.
Initiate the process to amend the bylaws without.
There was the comprehensively reviewed
And amended in concurrence.
in concurrence.
Yeah, and so I think that the final words of that statement upon final completion, because of the concurrence, would be unnecessary.
I would, well, it is what it is for right now.
and in this,
Well,
Yeah.
it's, yeah, okay.
so
It's clarified.
yeah, the chair, I have a question.
Yes.
So this isn't like what we vote on today directs staff to bring back to us an even more formal thing that we'll all be voting on that's published, 5 days before a meeting in future. Is that somewhat accurate?
No, it will prepare the amendment that will be circulated for signature. It has to go to our different jurisdictions for the
Okay.
signature.
And I think, Chair, we will probably, whatever occurs is a final approved motion. We will create that amendment number 2 and bring it back here before we circulate it.
Right, to make sure we got the wording right. So yes, it will be reviewed before release, but that is what we are doing today. I'm gonna go to Commissioner Cameron and then to Director Carney.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to speak against the motion. City of Salem has a vote. Chariots has a vote. Salem-Keizer School District has a vote. They represent the majority of the people that live within the city limits, as well as some outside the city limits. As I said this before, as a county commissioner, I represent the 175,000 people that live inside the city limits of Salem. Yes, I represent here outside the urban growth, or outside the city limits within the urban growth boundary. I have given the mayor the past results of this committee and the future allocations that this committee has made, and there is no response to say this has been unfair.
Director Carney.
Thank you, Chair Clark. I was curious if committee members will see like a redlined version of the cooperative agreement before we move forward with the process, or if we are anticipating that staff will make all of the changes necessary based on the contents of this motion. And then I further wanted to say that I know the transit district submitted a letter requesting a facilitated process at our last meeting in February. And And we still think that that would lead to some of the best outcomes, but in view of the collaboration of this group, I'm willing to support the amended motion.
We would see the red line version.
I'm going to say that depending on what the final motion says, it might be as simple as just saying substitute section C to say this. So just like in Turner, we swapped out section C. The whole amendment was a new section C with Turner inserted. Not necessary to redline in that case. If there's something else, we may redline, but in this case, it's just a simple swap the new one in.
So,
Commissioner Moorhurst?
thank you, Sharon. I'd like to make a motion so we have an alternative to one on the board. That'd be to direct SKATS staff to prepare an amendment to the SKATS cooperative agreement to add the city of Allenville as a voting member and provide an additional vote to the city of Salem that would remove the vote from the Salem-Keizer School District. The Salem-Keizer School District is a special district.
Stand by.
Yep.
So there's an alternative motion that you're proposing. Before we proceed with speaking the motion, we would need a second. And then a point of order.
I'll second.
Okay, seconded. Point of order would be the authority to be able to make a change in the voting status of a current signatory, and if the school district has a position on this. That's why I'm looking at you.
So you have a motion with an amendment on the table. You need to vote on the amendment before you consider any new motions.
So would this be amending this one to say that also removes the vote for the school district?
So the question would be, are you proposing a friendly amendment to?
Well, it would be friendly at this point.
Instead of an amendment, and make it a new motion, alternative motion.
No, because you have an amended motion on the table.
You have to vote on that first.
So you have to clear out the deck you already have.
We didn't have to vote on the first.
The first, got swapped.
But this is an amendment to the first one.
This amendment, amended the first one.
No, this was a new substitute. Remember, they didn't get a second on the amendment.
So the friendly amendment, they did not. So then there's a motion and second to amend. Which you can do. I'm sorry.
Robert's rules is so much fun.
Yes, this is why Amber is here, because she's better at it than I am.
Like the Dewey Duck.
I mean,
I love that
Have-
there out there, by the way. So just make sure we're clear before we go into discussion.
Well, they don't use the Dewey Decimal System anymore.
But she knows what it is.
I'm 30. No, we don't.
If I may speak, because I think this has generated some additional discussion for this, either a friendly amendment or substitute motion that's currently on the table. Salem is in support of a facilitated process, whether that's just a brief, hopefully highly efficient, subcommittee meeting to generate more agreement in this body. But without a facilitated process, this is what we are prepared to support. I mean, I think that we've discussed this. I know that we don't all agree, but we're trying to, come to as much of a majority or consensus as we possibly can without the facilitated process. So, this is what we would agree to without the facilitated process.
Chair, can we explore to see where we're at?
Yeah, let's, because this kind of muddy things like that, and my big concern is dealing with another jurisdiction that has not taken a position on this, to my knowledge. So my question to Director Hinojosa Tressy, has this been discussed by the Salem-Keizer School District?
Not the board as a whole. We've been a little preoccupied.
I kind of noticed, and by the way, congratulations.
Thank you.
I would like, that was a tremendous achievement on the part of everybody.
Yeah, I really
I know this is completely tangential to this, but I definitely am very proud of both groups and sitting through a 17-hour process to finally get us to a tentative agreement. And got to hear the good news at 1 a.m., but.
Thank you.
Well done. Yeah, well done. So with that, and that's why I figured it hadn't been discussed.
Chair, my notes show on the amendment to the original motion, it was motioned by Trevor Phillips, seconded by Maria.
Correct. Okay. That is true. So, no, this is not something that has been discussed by the school district. I know it's been something that was mentioned as a possibility, but there has been no follow-up on that.
Well, and also, if I can, I think to add on to that point is like, how would that process even go? Would that impact, like, would that constitute as like a significant modification to the cooperative agreement? If we be pulling off someone?
I have had some discussions with Federal Highway about what is significant and what's not, because the rules, federal rule regulations talk about significant changes. And I couldn't get really clear answers. Every example that I gave, they said that probably would not be significant. But combinations, they also did not give me a clear answer about what about combinations. And they really also said in their reply to me that it's up to the parties to determine what's significant or not, meaning the parties that are creating the cooperative agreement. So you could have one party say, yes, I think this is significant and I'd like to see us revisit it. But the regulations are not clear about all that, about when you cross the threshold of being significant. It's a matter of choice among people who are for.
I mean, I would like to state for the record, even though like the Salem-Keizer School Board has not had the chance to discuss it, like I have brought it up, we just haven't been able to get to that conversation.
And if I clarify, I would still want the school board to be an active member on this board, but stay across the school and represent your state. It's just the voting function.
So,
Not sure.
well, I've actually, Director Carney has been waiting, and then I would like to come back to you, sir. Director Carney?
Thank you, Chair.
Patience?
I do think in terms of representing our younger population and the future of Salem, the school board provides an excellent lens. I'm not really clear on what is in this motion. I requested in the chat, maybe we could see the words or like an approximation of the words so that I'm sorry I'm not sharing this sore throat and congestion with you all, but I would like to follow along. And then I just had a question for SKATS staff about the cooperative agreement. So Mike, you mentioned that section C is all that was referenced in the addition of Turner, but I'm looking at section E2, and it refers to governing bodies and it leaves out Turner. And it says, and the district, but perhaps it means districts. And then finally, and so I just wonder if that would need to be changed. And then like all 5 of the jurisdictions as opposed to the actual number that we're representing in with the addition of a new jurisdiction to the policy committee. And then finally, a question about updating the flow chart that is on page 6, or I guess it's an attachment. So that isn't part of the cooperative agreement, the adoption process for the TIP.
Gary, do you want me to answer those?
So, may I suggest, the sections, and thank you, Director Carney, for pointing out the additional work that would need to be done on the cooperative agreement based on the outcome of our conversation today, and that would be brought back.
Sorry, Director Carney, I don't agree with your assessment of what you said. If you look at amendment number 1, The major part of amendment number 1 was to change section C to add Turner. That was the only change to the cooperative agreement in 2002, 2003. Now, there are other things in the agreement you could raise issues about or have questions about, but that was the only change.
No, right. No, and as we are continuing to modify the boundaries of our MPO and adding new jurisdictions, I'm just wondering if it merits review of these other portions of the cooperative agreement, in specific section 2 or section E2.
Well, that's a whole other discussion.
Wouldn't that
Okay.
follow comprehensively review the amendment? That's bylaws. Okay.
That's a whole other discussion. Right now, we're kind of focused on who was the
Okay.
member voting is. The section
Okay.
E2 about unanimous votes is a whole other discussion. Yeah.
Okay.
Happy to answer
And,
questions.
yeah, if we can put a pin in that part.
May I point out that the, replacement motion is currently on the screen, if you'd like to see the slide deck to see the language that's being proposed, I was wondering.
She was talking about the.
Yeah. So this is
Proposal to,
Councilor Phillips. This is Councilor Phillips' motion.
right,
Commissioner Mordhorse's motion, which I believe is on current motion. I'm not showing that. If you want to repeat it, I think might be useful to hear it again.
Vote on this motion.
We're not ready for
Okay.
them to do that.
We're gonna vote on this.
so we have, but we also addition, well, I'm gonna yield to Commissioner Cameron because he put his,
Are we under Robert's rules?
we're trying to.
We're trying to.
So, Madam Chair, an amended motion can also have another motion amended
Yes.
only once. And I'm not sure that if Commissioner Morehorse was making an amendment to the motion that was up here, that I seconded it, and I thought that we would be in that discussion.
I did too. But if we can only amend once,
You can amend once, then take action, and then revisit if you want to replace that motion, but you have a motion on the floor.
may I suggest, because I believe that it sounds like this is a conversation to have. But we have an initial question about the school board. If we could move through what we're talking about now and then further direct regarding the school district, would that be acceptable to Commissioner Mordhorse?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm gonna go to Mayor Horning and then to Commissioner Cameron.
Can we please reiterate the motion?
It's on the table. That's what you see is what we have.
So the
Um,
one that I'm looking at on the screen.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is the one that is being considered at this time.
Okay.
Because if we have to have additional conversation regarding the school board, Commissioner Mordhorse has agreed to talk about that once we conclude this particular discussion.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Horning.
Councilor Phillips, I still want to follow up on the question to say, why do you think Salem needs 2 votes? I mean, I haven't heard any reasoning yet to say just because we're the biggest city, we need 2 votes. Is there another internal structure you can have to say, we can do the same thing without having 2 votes, but I haven't heard a reason why. And so I want to just throw that out there, is to say, why you need 2 votes to get to the same point we have successfully been doing for years.
I've heard the question and I think I understand it. I just think that there may be a bit of disagreement, like just because I can't name one thing in my short tenure that has happened in the history of this body doesn't mean that there won't be an issue moving forward. And I still think that I'm moved and the city of Salem is moved to try and have a more proportional, representation. So I understand that I may not be I think Chair Clark did an excellent job of summarizing where we're trying to come from. I hear that may not be moving to you, but I think that we still have this position, the city of Salem, Mayor Chris Hoy, we've spoken with staff and we feel this is the time to do this. This only happens every 10 years. And I think that we just have concerns about the possibility of going from 1 out of 8 to 1 out of 9 and setting a precedence that in future we could be 1 out of 10. We just want, since we're the biggest 65% of the population of the general purpose governments in this area, we feel that this is important for us to, represent this region in the strongest way possible to bring up the unique issues that face our community. I appreciate that, Commissioners Morthorse and Kevin Cameron represent, for this body, the unincorporated parts, but they've been elected to serve all of their counties and they were voted on by the members of Salem. I still think that as the body that, builds the roads and sidewalks for this community, it's important for us to have more than one representative. We're not a small city, and I think our goal, I would predict a majority of my colleagues, but we haven't officially voted on this as of yet, that they would be inclined to agree. So our goal is to remain cooperative, to work with everybody to achieve, our local and regional solutions in the best way possible. But I think we are a stronger body moving forward if we get an extra vote. So, and again, I think that this is probably the fastest way to move this process forward too, to get Almsville on board. We would have no concerns with that, with this motion that's here now, and it would go as smooth as possible for us.
Chair, I thought maybe Amber, who's more expert than Robert's rules than I am, can explain exactly where we are in the motions and why we're doing what we're doing on which vote. Can you help with that?
I think we're on this one, yes?
Yes. So you had originally a motion, a request for a friendly amendment, which was not seconded. So at that point, another motion was presented as a replacement motion. So that motion is the motion on the table. If you vote on that, it clears all prior motions and creates a decision. So that's where we are. And that's why there's not an amendment allowed, because it's a replacement motion.
Just to clarify, I thought it was a friendly,
Oh, go ahead.
I thought it was a friendly amendment to the motion
So the motion that was originally made by
by Chair Clark.
had a second by Mr. Morhorse. When the friendly motion was proposed, he did not allow his second to carry forward. So that causes the friendly motion to die, because there's then a replacement motion offered in lieu of a friendly motion.
And who made the replacement motion?
Councilor
Who
Phillips.
seconded it?
This person.
Okay. It's a motion on just to clarify, we have a motion on the floor.
Correct, a replacement motion, which requires action before going forward with any further amendments or new motions.
It cannot
Because
be
it's called a replacement motion?
Correct.
Okay.
Anyway.
Roberts.
Good old Robert.
Good old Robert.
The one on the screen.
Okay, the one on the screen.
Yes. Director, who's present.
Thank you, Chair. I don't speak for the city of Salem in terms of like their intentions, but I do feel strongly about the need of having that proportional representation, similar as to how we've had to adjust like our House districts. We've got new congressional district seats based on our population. And I know that, I don't want to muddy like the motion or anything, but I do think that in the future, if this body decides, I think maybe if we establish based on something based in the population, I think it could also benefit these other bodies too as they continue to grow, to have that representation included here within this policy committee.
So I'm going to repeat a couple of things that I've said, reminding us that Salem has asked for one. We've looked at models where we have, based on the size of Keizer and Salem and Marion County and so forth and so on. It could be all sorts of numbers, but as we've recognized, I keep telling everybody the game's set up and the votes don't matter. It's really been the case. Having additional voice at the table is what got my interest. in pursuing having a second Salem counselor here. That was what is interesting to me because they are committing to being part, as Counselor Phillips is doing now, as Counselor Clem and Counselor Lewis have done in the past. Be fully engaged in this process. They have a vote, but more importantly, they've got an additional perspective and voice. We all know in our bodies that we do not have unanimity of thought or uniformity of thought, and that's why there are 7 on the City Council for Keizer. I need the other 6 because, yeah, I'm smart, but I'm not that smart. And I learned something from hearing from other people's points of view. That is why I am interested in this proposal to add a seat. The vote that comes with it, to me, that's a commitment. But the seat at the table for another counselor to have another voice. The Salem City Council is a diverse body of 9 people with a lot of different points of view, coming from a lot of different experiences. I think that with the addition of the wonderful voice and experience of Almsville, coupled with an additional voice from Salem, I think it can strengthen this body moving forward. What happens in 2033, I wish them all the best. I won't be here. I am here now. And I would encourage us to move forward and get back to work as a body of 10. We're stronger because we are a very strong, unique region. Bless you. That's my thing. Mayor Horn.
Just clarifying, you're talking about vote, not representation on the board, but representation, including a vote.
That is correct. Has to be a body with it.
Why would that be?
Because it has 2 people with 2 thoughts, 2 points of view based on where they are, not only in their city, but their understanding of what's happening in the region. We all bring what we know, what's happening in our communities. I can tell you about things happening in Keizer projects that help you understand how everything's interacting with the other areas in our region. It gives us a better perspective and a better understanding of how our region is operating. As I listen to Commissioner Moorhorse talk about what's happening at 22 and 51, sure, I've driven through there, but I get a deeper understanding hearing what he's got to say. As Commissioner Cameron and city staff, the county and county and the city work together on East Salem. It has been so effective to be able to put these projects together in a way that's comprehensive and interoperable, and we can help each other out. When Director Carney brought up the idea when we were talking about the coordinating corridor, well, we have the bus stops. That's why we're here, is to bring those perspectives together that are going to help us make better, maybe more interesting decisions that come up with something that's better than what we came with originally from our own one perspective. I think we can benefit, and I think it's worth moving forward with for the strength of our MPO. That's why I am supporting it. That's it. And Keizer's going to have 1 out of 10, and I'm okay with
To your
that.
point, though, whether you had a vote or not a vote, you can still have 2 or 3 bodies here making suggestions. City of Salem, as a group, 1, 2, or 3, or 4 get their vote. They, for the best process, the best project, we could allocate the funds that way.
We already do for the most part, but having the vote is a commitment on the part of that counselor to show up fully, and they are committed to this work. They're going to do the prep work. They're going to make sure that they are fully informed. You know, none of us are the grab the packet on the way in the door people. We are all here because we do our homework. And we're ready for these conversations. We understand our systems. And we're asking someone else to take up that responsibility and that workload. And the person who'll be doing it will be another unpaid volunteer like I am, like director, especially like you are, Mayor. That is a big commitment. I've been doing this for 18 years, and it has been a heavy, heavy lift. One that I do not regret doing is one I have enjoyed. It's been interesting. And I'm proud of being part of projects that benefit the region. you know I have a vote, I've got to show up. If I don't show up, we are going to be short the body necessary to do this. To me, a vote is a commitment, saying I commit being here. That's fun. And no, I have not talked to Mayor Hoy since the last meeting. We're scheduled actually later. I just went back and listened. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
And Chair Clark, Chair Clark, I just want to thank you for your eloquent summary. I think you did an excellent job. It reminds me of a minor point, but I was originally appointed to like 8 subcommittees as a counselor, and I've had to scale back a bit. One of the subcommittees I don't serve on is like our infrastructure bond, the safe and renewable livable cities bond that passed. $300 million is going to be invested in our community. And, that's just one example of there are counselors that serve on that know that stuff hand in glove, like they're working on that. And it's just an example of how it's impossible for just one counselor, as committed as I am, to bring that type of in-depth knowledge to this body. I mean, I follow those meetings and what comes out of them when they get to city council, but we just can't serve in every capacity. We try our best, and we've got really talented mayor and councilors, but we're a big enough city that we really do have to delegate that out. So I think that, what we're asking for is in a large way, an example of the growth that our community's experienced over the last 2 decades. So, thank you again for considering this. I really appreciate the discussion. I hear people and the counterpoints, and I'm just trying to do the best I can to represent the city of Salem's position. Thank you.
Thank you. Other discussion? You ready for a vote? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Chair, ODOT abstains.
Noted for the record. Ayes that I've heard are Phillips, Carney, Host, Presley, and Clark. Noes.
No.
Or no.
No from Horning, Morthorst, Cameron. Motion passes. Okay. With that, I would like to revisit briefly, and we will need to have them come back on this one, the issue regarding the school district. I appreciate the conversation that's happened around the voting status of the school district. There has been this is a uniqueness that we have as an MPO to have the school district even on our MPO, much less as a voting member. We have discussed in the past the benefits that we have of having the school district as a member and as a voting member. I would ask that we bring back this conversation after the school board has had an opportunity to have this conversation about their status on the SKATS steering committee, what am I saying? The SKATS policy committee, and then have that conversation at that point, put it on the agenda for April. Commissioner Morthorst, are you okay with that? Because I know this was something that was interesting to you as well.
Sure.
Director, Ms. Pressey, is that something that you'd be willing to carry to the school board?
Yeah, making sure to write it down so I don't forget.
And I'm sure that SKAT staff can help remind that we want to have this. I think for a robust conversation.
Sure. One last comment.
That-
Welcome, Lonsville.
Welcome to Lonsville.
Clarification, are they official or do you have to sign?
We gotta sign it.
Official.
So we make step one. Yeah, step one, it has been passed.
And Chair Clark, thank you again. Welcome, Amsville. I just have a question now. In what time frame does Salem need to train up and get another member here? And when does Amsville and Salem officially get those votes?
Well, it's not official until all the signatures are obtained on the amendment, it's gonna actually say that on the amendment, this is not official until all signatures are obtained. All necessary signatures.
Once we've signed it and it's, done, the cooperative agreement is done, then you will be getting both will get a notification to make an official appointment to the policy committee. So, for Almsville, Mayor Seha will receive that notice along with the city manager. And we all hope, and I think we know that Councilor Sini will be appointed. You already had that vote. Okay. When it first came. All right. Well, that's gonna be a tremendous add for us. It's always one of the active voice on this approach.
Looking forward to getting involved.
Fantastic. Counselor, are you good?
Wait a minute, so
We're checking.
we have, for that motion, it was Councilor Phillips.
Philip, Carney,
Carney.
Host Presley, Clark.
President.
4-3.
One abstention was ODOT.
Yep. Okay. That's my agenda. Tip modifications are in the packet. Ruth there?
So there are 6 tip modifications that are part of attachment F. And I'll just briefly say that the first 3 on the list were all approved by the policy committee at last month's February meeting. And then the last 3 were administrative staff amendments. And similar to one of the amendments that was approved today, there was in this case, actually a decrease in formula 5307 funds for transit. So that's a case where the actual apportionment was lower than what was projected. So staff made those changes to the projects that impact. That's in attachment.
All right, any questions on the tip modifications and attachment F? Okay. Other business, OMPOC summary.
Sure, I don't have that for today unless you want a verbal summary, or we can put that on your book.
Yeah, we can pretty much, a lot of it had to do with the recap from the legislative session. We heard updates from other jurisdictions on the state, the other MPOs. And the big push, we all know, is 2025. Getting ready for the transportation package. There'll be a lot of conversation about that at OMPOC, as well as I'm sure we'll be talking about that here and at the ACT, getting ready for 2025. So,
Can I add one thing?
yes.
During the ODOT updates of the meeting as well, there was just some conversation that the statewide transportation action plan is doing an update, and that process I think is starting this summer. And so similar to what Mike's been working on for the metro area, this is a statewide plan. So you might start hearing more about that at the that was mentioned at OMPOC as well.
If I may add, this is like the bigger update. They kind of like swap every 5 years between light and heavy, and the last one was rather light. This is an opportunity for slightly larger position. So it is kind of a big deal.
We all like safety. Job one. So absolutely. Thank you. And we look forward at the ACT as well for hearing more updates on that. So. Separate body, we are very clear. This is the MPO, that's the ACT, that they are doing. Okay, anything else on OMPOC? The next policy committee meeting is April 24th, and the tax meeting will be on April 9th. Is there anything else? Thank you. What?
And that's the meeting we'll adopt the draft Unified Planning Work Program.
Okay, a little light reading, folks.
And there'll be some other important topics on that agenda, so hope people will take the time to come in April.
Okay, yep, sure enough. 23rd. All right, thank you all very much. The time is, anything else? Time is 1:29, we are adjourned.